I'm here with Levi.
Hello, and you're watching Muse and Music. Hi, my name is Levi. I'm an audio engineer and producer, and currently an entrepreneur as well. I'm working on developing a independent record label as well as investing time and energy into artists and developing their careers.
The reason that I'm doing this video, that we are doing this video, and I invited Levi here, is because I want to talk about the relationship between producer and artist. Because a lot of times you get into the studio, you're nervous because it's a new person, you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to act, and it's kind of unclear what's going on. So here is a producer that's gonna tell you exactly. Of course, it's changing from person to person, but the basics are there. So we're gonna do it as an interview, but I think it's a very valuable information to know if you're gonna work with a producer or you're a producer that's working with an artist. Okay, so my first question would be, where do you find artists to work with? Because you're developing artists, right? Mm-hmm. So where do you find them? Do you reaching out or they are?
So in the beginning of it all, it kind of all started with word of mouth, to be honest. I was working with an artist, and through that artist, someone called me, and it kind of snowballed from there and grew from there. Now, at this point, it transitions from word of mouth to now networking at events. That typically is the second best. And then the third thing is random encounters. We're in LA, so we're always surrounded by creative people. And so when I run into an artist, funny story is typically with Uber and Lyft.
That's true. I meet so many musicians in Uber and Lyft.
It's pretty amazing.
All the time.
It's pretty amazing. And I ended up just having conversations and connecting, and then Instagram, we message, develop a relationship on social media, and then it kind of goes from there.
So that leads me to another question, because you meet a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So what is it that makes you want to work with an artist? What makes you want to invest?
You know, I was thinking about this, and typically it would be passion. But lately, probably in the last 2 years, I've noticed that what makes me want to work with an artist is when I can identify a certain X factor in them. They could be at the very ground level of their creative abilities or their career, but you kind of know, especially as a musician or a creative person or just an artsy eared person or whatever.
There's something there.
There's something there, and I've noticed lately is you kind of sometimes have to believe more for someone in the beginning than they in themselves. So when I see that, I want to kind of like encourage it, inspire it. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but for me, that's kind of where I get passionate, is where I'm like, I see it, I want to grow it, I want to develop, and so I show them that they have it.
Okay, so passion is good, but what are some other qualities that you look in an artist that you know, okay, he worth or she worth my time that I'm actually investing? What's it gonna be?
You know, I definitely like to identify a eagerness to be in the studio, and typically in the studio it's a very vulnerable place, so humility is always good. Just someone who is confident. This is not everybody across the board, but it changes. But you kind of feel it out as you're in the session or in the studio. But someone who is confident, but also humble. You know, everyone knows if you're in the studio and it could be left or right in regards to the feel and the vibe. You know, so I look for things like that.
Do you ever have like a person that came to the you got a good vibe with and everything was great, and then he came to the studio and you were like, that like I don't like it?
I've had that, but at that point the engineer side kicks in. It's like, okay, this is a session. You know, if it is a paid situation, it's like, okay, I'm here to work. This is my job, so I got to reinforce. You know, not every session is going to be like, yeah, you know, a party. So you just got to learn how to work with it, you know. So, yeah.
I have a video about that, guys. I have a video that I kind of did like a short video satire about like how to act in a studio. It's like basic stuff. It's really funny. It's like 3 minutes and you can get a great laugh and learn a little bit. So I will link it down below and in the card right above so you can check it out. So a little bit like, more in depth to the like what you don't like, what will make you like, put a stop to it, put an end to it, and be like, okay, you know what, that's not working. Like what's gonna break the relationship?
This is a tough question for me because I'm I desire to really know someone, especially in that context. So, in thinking about this question, I was like, okay, typically it takes a lot for me to stop a session, but I would say the biggest thing is if it crosses boundaries of comfort, personal boundaries. I would say that would be, but that's never really happened to me. But if you're in a situation, especially as an artist, where you feel uncomfortable or you feel like you know, not safe or anything like that, whether it's, in any kind of way, shape, or form, then that would definitely be the cap for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about like if you like the person a lot,
Yeah.
but the professionalism is in the way, like they're always late,
Yeah.
and because some of the artists and
That's
like some
true.
of the biggest artists in the world, they like never showed up on time, and they
Yeah.
were like wasted or something. And
Yeah.
I know that for me it's really hard to work in a studio when like the person is kind of like wasted and like
Yeah.
not coming on time. But like, what is it for you if the artist is talented, but like?
Yeah, that's so funny. I have had a situation where an artist, I do remember something where they were high, you know what I mean? And it was like, you talk heavy, like it was heavy. And I was like, yo, we might need to delay this process a little bit. Let's just maybe reschedule, But that's probably the closest I've been to like shifting out of, a situation because it needed to end.
Okay. So just, try to come on time and be like, on point.
True.
Because he was scheduled, but like other producers or engineers can just tell you, you know what, like I don't want to work like that. Or maybe if it happens too often,
Yeah.
that's also like, because studio time is money eventually, and it's time for like other people.
True.
So you don't want to be that person that's kind of like making everybody wait.
Yeah, true. That made me want to add something. Can I
Yeah,
add something?
of course.
Well, I think one thing that I always do, and this is a tip for anyone who wants to be a producer, an engineer, is I always set up an initial down payment. If you're going to buy into my time, it's usually a fee up front to set and lock in the time frame. Now, if someone wants to come in and they want to be with you and to respect that time, and if they're serious, they'll be willing to put down some money to lock in the time frame with you first, and that's non-refundable. So yeah,
Makes sense. Okay, so we were talking about how stressful it can be to come in the first time to the studio, and it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Do you do something to make the artist feel comfortable and to kind of like, because we artists, so like sometimes we feel everything,
Yeah.
so the vibe should be on point.
Yeah, this is a really important question to me because I definitely love to, like I said earlier, to really know someone. So typically for me, that always starts with conversation. Some people come to the studio, they're ready to work. That's all. I want in, out. Don't really, I'm not worried about a relationship. Just want to. But a lot of people come in who are really uncomfortable, sometimes insecure about their artistry, but they're super talented, and we know it as the developers. But they might have, those personal insecurities. So it's all about, for me, definitely being willing to have conversation. Initially, every time someone comes to the studio, I expect them to expect me to be super professional and have everything ready, session lined up, everything's ready to record. But then I'll be ready at the computer to start, and they're like, so, hey, how are you doing? And then a conversation will happen, and I'm like, oh, I guess it's, it's okay then to open up and to connect with the individual, whoever's in the studio. So yeah, typically it's conversation, but I always try to have music playing when they come in. Nothing too influential, because you don't want to sway like the creative vibe if someone comes in ready to write.
I think even if you're like super insecure and you're super afraid and scared, maybe try to kind of like sell this a little bit, because you don't want to come to a studio and be like all terrified, sometimes some of the producers like not gonna like babysit you and and you like nurture you and like try to calm you down. So try to kind of like settle your emotions and feeling. If you're nervous and you feel like the other person might be nervous as well, like the producer, it's his first time with you as well. So you're both kind of there. Just try to not make it like a big deal.
Yeah, definitely having taking some time before going into the session, kind of realizing. I usually, before I meet with someone, I'm like, okay, what is this about? I kind of recite the mission in my mind to settle my my butterflies. So yeah.
So you're saying you have butterflies yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it. Tell me about your butterflies.
I mean, let's just be honest. Like meeting new people. That's all I really need to say. But at the same time, it's like there's a vulnerability that comes with a producer as well. For me, I'm also giving you myself as well. So when the artist comes into my studio or my space, and we share that space, it's like I'm also exposing a little bit of myself as well. And so there's a vulnerability there. And that's typically, I think we all have it where it's like, will they accept me? You know what I mean?
Of course, new people, it's always like, what do I say? How do I act? Like, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And if I haven't shown it already, I'm super goofy. And I like to be that way in the studio. And it just makes it light and fun. But, there are times to be, very serious and very professional. But, when I'm nervous, it's because I'm like, what should I display? What side of me? I'm thinking a lot about that. So I figure it out eventually, probably like a couple minutes into the session, I kind of catch the wave. But initially, it's always like, okay, all right, here we go. Another person,
Yeah, I
awesome.
guess you're like catching the vibe of the other person.
Exactly.
Like, does he want me to like talk much, or does he want me to just like do my job, or like how do we communicate?
Exactly.
I think it's catching the vibe of the person. But
Exactly.
as you see, everyone get nervous, so it's completely fine to be nervous a little bit about it, and don't worry about it. If like you're meeting a new person, it makes sense that you kind of like it takes time until you develop a relationship that you can actually like sit and talk, and like everything is. I mean, for some people, it's just very natural to meet new people, but I think it comes with experience. So don't worry about it. Okay, so this question is specifically to the artists that you developed, that you decided to develop, and kind of like, take them as a project. What is the dynamic of the relationship?
Right.
Because you acting a role of a producer, but it can be more than that. It can be like strictly produced. So how is that?
There was a point in time where I noticed that I'm surrounded by creatives, but no one that I personally know has taken the role of producer, engineer, and on the business side, well, that's business too, but producing, engineering, but like, who's talking about websites, who's talking about photo shoots, who's talking about electronic press kits, EPKs, who's talking about, even touring, who's developing those sides of things. And so that's kind of where it all came in for me, especially getting some education on the business side and seeing that the necessity of it and the importance of law, the legal aspect, having your contracts in order. Even if you think it's just like, oh, it's buddy, at the end of the day, if something goes awry and you don't have a contract, then,
Have a contract, guys. It's super important. So many friendships was destroyed, because of that. Because it's like fun, we're having a band and we're creating together. And then when it comes to money, suddenly it's like, wait a second,
Yeah.
And a lot of artists, I feel that because a lot of artists, like, they don't know. They just, they feel like, okay, my job is to create. My job is to, to make the music. And they don't think about the other aspects. So I hope you do. But if you don't, you have other people that can help you out.
So yeah, that's kind of how that developed. It took a while. I mean, it took about a year to really kind of sit in that and kind of develop that. While I was doing that, I was just being an engineer and producer. But then over time, I was like, you know what? Okay, now let's talk about touring. I tell my artists, like, do you want to tour? Is that a thing that interests you? And it starts to kind of plant the seeds of developing ideas in the artists, and then we go from there as in putting together, photo shoots. Let's get your visual content up. Let's look at what does it even mean to do good social media. Have it all together. And so yeah, all those things started snowballing, and
they're so lucky to have them. I'm doing it on my own, like everything. Nobody's like telling me, Vika, let's go to a photo shoot. Like I wish I had somebody who's like, okay, we're gonna do that, and then you're gonna. It's so fun. I'm so lucky to have you. So I know it's not written a question, and I didn't ask you that before, but I do want to add something.
Yeah.
So when you're working with an artist, what are your expectation of the artist, like the participation of everything? Because you kind of like setting everything, right? You kind of like, let's do that. Are you interested in that?
Right.
What's the contribution of the artist besides, of course, the music and everything? Like, what do you expect?
I kind of have it in two columns. I have the artists that I am investing in, and then I have the artists that are considered clients. So it's a little different for both. But the ones that I invest in, I expect that part of my role is kind of to manage. So if been in contact with managers or seen their role with the artists, they're pretty like hands on. So I for those artists, I expect that they're not just expecting me to just hand in hand walk them to their goals in life. I want to see some action on their side of like. Even just calling me like, hey Levi, what do we have to do today? That tells me it's like, okay, you're
the artist is active, on point, and kind of like working with you.
Exactly. Now for the client column, it's a business transaction for me in that form. It's all business, but for a client, it's when they aren't, working their career forward, then it's hard to move forward with them. For example, like if we get into the studio and then I don't hear from them for like 3 months, there's nothing much I can do for you. So the expectation for a client is, if you want to start with me, then end with me. So yeah, that's kind of how I separate my career and the people that I work with is in the client column and in the investment column, like as a producer and engineer.
I feel like because we are in LA, and I feel like in LA it's very common to just not calling and just not like notify the person, even if you want to stop working and something is not right or you're like out of money, like anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
But I feel that a lot of times a person just disappears and it's so annoying, guys. Yeah. Just don't do it. Like I personally would appreciate if I would like, because I'm an artist, so if I would call a producer and he would tell me, listen, that's not working out, or like I can't, I'm busy, or I don't know, like something didn't work out, just like tell me, explain me, but like don't avoid my calls, don't like just disappear out of nowhere with like half song done, and then I'm like, okay, this song is like going to trash because like I can't contact the person, it's just like he's gone. So be kind and just like feel okay about like saying no as well. I feel like you would appreciate that too, right? If an artist calling you, just like, listen, like it's not working.
If it's I always say this, over communication is the best communication. It's never annoying to over communicate for me, because then that tells me two things. One, that you're really adamant on making sure everything is where you want it to be, and two, you're not afraid of basically saying, hey, I can't, I know it's always nerve-wracking.
It's always like, I don't want to hurt the person, I don't want to have this conversation, it's awkward, it's embarrassing, but it's for the best. I mean, I'm dealing with it too. I'm like, sometimes I need to say no, and I'm like, how do I say that? How do I explain? Do I need to give an excuse, or should I like, be honest about it? Right. And it can be awkward, but I think it's better just like than leaving the person hanging there and like not knowing. Yeah. Do you have something to mention to the artist like before we?
Yeah. I just wanted to encourage, if you're out there and your friends are telling you that you're amazing, that you got some talent and you want to, invest in it and grow it and nurture it, take that step. Don't be afraid. You can always contact me. My information will be in the description
below. I will put all the links for his social media, for his contact, whatever he will give me.
Exactly. And if, I know a producer that might be best for you, I can always, suggest them to you as well. So it's a network, but the only way to be a part of the network is to get into it. So
Yeah. The first step is always the difficult one, so just take it. Just like
We're here
do
for
it. Okay, so I want to thank you for coming. And as a thank you, you will get from me a Muse and Music notebook, because you said you like writing.
I do.
And
I
you
do.
said, and you told me that orange is something you like. So
Music notebook.
there you go. And just keep it with you. Write whatever you want in there. You know, all your clients, all your new projects, your ideas. Put them down there.
Custom.
Custom made. Thank you for coming.
No
Thank you
problem,
so much.
anytime.